The yacht industry is in full crisis mode after an $8 million lawsuit went public, and the owners behind it are done staying quiet. Their world-class build turned into months of delays, missing materials, and a locked shipyard refusing access. Then, insiders started leaking the truth. Substituted parts, ignored safety flags, and progress reports that don't match reality. Every document makes the builder look worse, and every leak pulls another company into the spotlight. But here's the twist. Experts say this scandal exposes loopholes that impact anyone buying a big-ticket build. And what they found could cost unsuspecting buyers far more than $8 million. The $8 million explosion. The headline broke like a thunderclap. A luxury yacht builder, once praised for precision engineering, now facing an $8 million lawsuit that threatened to sink its name overnight. Court filings revealed accusations that read more like an exposé than a business dispute. Misrepresented specifications, unapproved modifications, and payments that vanished into a black hole of excuses. The plaintiffs weren't amateurs. They were documented professionals who had paid in full, trusting a promise of unmatched craftsmanship. What they got instead was delay, denial, and a half-built dream locked behind shipyard gates. Screenshots from internal communications began circulating online, showing engineers flagging design inconsistencies months before the clients were informed. Industry watchers called it the most public implosion in recent yachting history, not because of the money involved, but because of what it revealed: a pattern of corners cut, deadlines missed, and truth withheld. Suddenly, the brand that built its empire on reputation became a cautionary tale. Transparency wasn't just missing, it had been engineered out of sight. But the real exposure didn't come from the headlines. It came from inside the yard itself, where silence had been bought one paycheck at a time. Inside the exposure, behind those towering steel doors in Antalya, the truth had been simmering for months. Workers described whispered warnings, orders to move fast and don't ask, and materials swapped for cheaper alternatives when inspectors weren't watching. The deeper investigators dug, the darker it got. One subcontractor, fearing dismissal, leaked photos of warped weld seams and misaligned bulkheads, proof that quality control had slipped long before the delays began. The images hit social media and exploded across forums. Suddenly, the $8 million yacht wasn't just a private contract, it was evidence. What made it explosive wasn't the defects alone, but the receipts. Documents showing clients billed for top-tier materials that were never delivered. Auditors traced these invoices back to internal accounts, revealing irregular transfers and inflated cost adjustments. For a company that built its image on honesty and handcraft, this was nuclear. The scandal stripped away every layer of prestige, exposing a system that prioritized payment flow over product integrity. It wasn't just a lawsuit anymore, it was an autopsy of trust. And as those photos made their way into court filings, what was once rumor became record, setting the stage for a reckoning no builder could escape. If you're following this story so far, make sure you're subscribed and hit the like button to stay ahead of every update as this case unfolds. Your feedback helps push these investigations further, and the truth deserves eyes on it. Delays measured in millions. The calendar turned into an adversary. The contract's timeline, locked to a delivery in late 2024, began slipping one notice at a time. By mid-2025, the vessel remained on land, unfinished, its steel hull only 70% complete. Payment records told the harsher truth. Over $7,600,000 had already changed hands. The capital was gone, tied up in material, labor, and management fees that could not be retrieved without legal action. Each month of delay carried its own hidden expense lost charter potential, depreciation of market excitement, and the weight of uncertainty on every balance sheet. The builders blamed supply chain strain. The clients pointed to mismanagement. Emails turned formal, then tense, then cold. Every communication circled back to the same unanswered question: where had the time and the money gone? For the clients, liquidity was no longer frozen, it was sinking. And then, on a quiet Monday morning, a message arrived from the builder's administrative office. It contained just 6 words: stop work, contract under review. The silence that followed was louder than any engine ever built. When trust breaks water, What came next ended any illusion of cooperation. The clients terminated the agreement, citing breaches in specification, communication, and schedule. The builder refused to release the half-finished hull, insisting ownership had not transferred because final payment was outstanding. That standoff drew attention to a clause buried deep in most marine contracts: the difference between ownership and possession. On paper, a buyer may own the structure. In practice, the builder controls access until every invoice is cleared. The couple's attorneys reviewed international maritime law and confirmed the only remedy was civil litigation. On July 30th, 2025, a filing was made in North Carolina under Case 5:25 CV00463. The complaint accused the builder of breach of contract, fraud, and negligence in the handling of funds and construction standards. It demanded both restitution and physical release of the yacht, now an unfinished skeleton of steel and promises. News of the filing circulated quickly, sparking questions about how a company so established could fall into such chaos. Yet, the most revealing details were still sealed within the docket, waiting for the first public hearing. The lawsuit was not just about a yacht anymore. It was about accountability, transparency, and the cost of misplaced trust. As the case entered court, both sides prepared to expose the truth, unaware of how far those revelations would reach. Behind the gates of Antalya, the first true look inside the Turkish shipyard stripped away the glossy marketing that had once defined the builder's reputation. Antalya, a city known for its sprawling coastlines and skilled labor, hosted the very facility where the disputed yacht was taking shape, or more accurately, stalling in silence. Workers described dwindling crew numbers, long nights, and delivery trucks that never showed up when expected. Material shipments arrived late, forcing welders to reuse temporary stock. Sections of the hull sat exposed under open tarps, streaked with salt and time. Those who remained on site spoke cautiously, aware that any complaint could cost them their job. The economic appeal of outsourcing to Turkey was clear. Costs were roughly 30% lower than Western shipyards, yet that savings came with a price oversight gaps that widened each month. Quality checks, once routine, turned sporadic as management raced to stay on schedule. Subcontractors came and went, leaving unfinished joints and unverified welds behind. It was efficiency by necessity, not by design. The builder's public statements praised strategic partnerships abroad, but inside, corners were being quietly cut. Among the welders and electricians, one subcontractor kept notes detailed, dated, and soon to become Exhibit A. The emails no one was supposed to see. Those handwritten notes weren't the only evidence. Buried in the company's archive was a chain of emails exchanged months before the delay became public. Each message carried a timestamp and an unspoken admission. The schedule had already slipped. One line stood out: client interference flagged, schedule risk accepted. In legal terms, those 12 words could shift blame from builder to client, voiding delay claims entirely. If proven, the company could dodge liability worth hundreds of thousands. But metadata told another story. The emails were written after the delays began, not before. That single detail turned defense into deception. Financial analysts warned that admitting internal fault could void warranties and trigger penalties near $500,000. The clients now had proof the collapse wasn't accidental, it was hidden. Even as those emails stayed sealed, the accounting records that followed would reveal everything they tried to bury. The $8 million divide. When auditors followed the payment trail, the numbers told a story worse than rumor. Records showed more than $7,600,000 transferred, yet only 70% of the yacht was complete. Another $1,200,000 sat frozen in partial escrow, pending verification that never came. The builder's milestone reports clashed with physical inspections, breaking fundamental industry standards. Money had moved faster than progress. When the clients requested an independent audit, the company refused under confidentiality. That refusal confirmed the shortfall capital unrecoverable, trapped in a half-built hull. Experts agreed this wasn't poor management, it was procedural failure. Escrow accounts meant to safeguard clients were funding daily expenses instead. Their investment wasn't protected, it was paying the builder's bills. For any firm, that's a red flag. For a client, it's a wound that bleeds until the court decides who owns the loss. Summons and silence. The legal notice arrived quietly, a plain envelope delivered to the company's U.S. office, addressed to senior executives. Inside were pages marking the start of an international reckoning. Breach of contract, fraud, negligence, and unfair trade practices. Each allegation came with evidence timelines, invoices, and internal emails. Filed in North Carolina, the case transformed a private disagreement into a global headline. Overnight, every major yacht builder began watching. The company's first response wasn't an apology, it was silence. Their website went dark, phones redirected to voicemail, and press inquiries vanished unanswered. Then a new filing appeared, a counterclaim accusing the plaintiffs of defamation and breaching confidentiality. Industry insiders were stunned. Instead of confronting defects or payments, the builder tried to discredit those who had paid them. That single move revealed the truth. This fight was bigger than one yacht. It was a reflection of an industry suddenly forced to face itself. The outcry beyond the docks. What began as one dispute in a single shipyard quickly spread through the entire marine world. Within weeks of the lawsuit, owner forums filled with posts describing the same story: unfinished builds, missing parts, and rising invoices. From Florida to the French Riviera, dockside chatter turned into warnings. A single online thread gathered over 500 comments in a day, echoing the same frustration: promises made, payments taken, and yachts that never launched. The reaction hit fast. Resale listings slowed. Brokers saw fewer calls, and prices began slipping in real time. Pre-owned yacht values dropped 5 to 8% in one quarter, wiping out tens of millions in brand equity. Confidence built over decades collapsed overnight. Analysts called it a perception crash, something no marketing campaign could fix. Each photo of an unfinished hull became a warning, and by the time insurers reacted, the trust had already vanished. Pressure in the industry's hull. Behind closed doors, risk managers began rewriting the rules. Major insurers held emergency meetings to reassess exposure on every active shipbuilding policy. Brokers reported delays on new contracts until audits confirmed verified progress. Then came a leaked insurance memo from September 2025. It warned that build risk premiums would jump 12% in the next quarter due to systemic oversight failures in subcontracted yards. 12% sounded small, but in marine finance it multiplied fast. A $20 million project now carried nearly $250,000 in extra insurance costs before the first weld. Builders passed those expenses to clients, hidden in revised totals. Negotiations froze, investors hesitated, and shipyards faced scrutiny like never before. Designers paused projects, waiting for clarity. Across the industry, one fear grew louder. If this scandal exposed one company's weakness, how many others might follow? Regulators in Europe quietly began connecting the dots. Corporate counterfire. The builder at the center of the scandal refused to go down quietly. As headlines grew, its lawyers struck back, filing motions accusing the plaintiffs of defamation and interference. It was a gamble, an attempt to reshape the story from deception to misunderstanding. But defending a global reputation drained cash fast. Court records showed legal costs topping $250,000 every quarter. Soon, vendors reported delayed payments, subcontractors walked away, and morale inside the yard collapsed. Publicly, the company insisted on transparency and commitment to quality, but cracks widened. Then came the leak-in affidavit from a senior engineer admitting that executives approved cost-saving design changes without client consent. The confession demolished the firm's narrative, revealing a truth far worse than delays. From that moment, the dispute stopped being about schedules or money. It became a fight for credibility, one destined to be decided under oath. If you found value in what we've uncovered today, subscribe before you leave. The next chapter in this investigation is already forming, and the details coming out next could change how you see this entire industry. Courtroom currents. When the first hearing opened in North Carolina, every major trade outlet covered it. The unfinished yacht Atomus stood at the center of the dispute. Lawyers argued over whether the hull should stay with the builder or be released for independent completion. Exhibits filled the courtroom: payment logs, welding photos, and email threads showing months of delay. Each record proved that the builder's management had failed its own safeguards. The financial shock spread fast. Once the court froze Atomus, over $40 million in related contracts also stalled. Marine lenders tightened credit, and investors panicked over collateral risk. A single hold can cripple an entire asset network, since hulls often secure loans and leases. The judge's ruling halted every sale, delivery, and schedule tied to the builder. One strike of the gavel shifted ownership, reputation, and liquidity, marking the moment the entire yachting industry felt the wave break. The cost of winning. When the judgment arrived, it brought both relief and exhaustion. The court sided with the plaintiffs, confirming the builder had breached contract terms, misrepresented progress, and withheld property. On paper, it was a victory, restitution granted, penalties applied, and the unfinished yacht ordered for release. But profit never equals justice. Legal fees consumed nearly 20% of the damages, over $1,600,000 gone to costs. Add travel, expert testimony, and months of halted income, and the win felt hollow. Financial strain mirrored emotional fatigue. Years of anticipation had turned into anxiety. The dream of sailing had been replaced by paperwork and pressure. Headlines celebrated victory, but behind them were sleepless nights and drained accounts. The case set a precedent, yet its true reward was intangible, control reclaimed after chaos. Hidden in those hundreds of pages lay one missing clause that could have prevented it all. The clause that saves fortunes. After the verdict, attorneys examined the contract like surgeons searching for missed warnings. The flaw was small but costly. No escrow clause tied to verified progress. With such protection, the builder could not have accessed payments without third-party confirmation. The rule is simple: never release more than 20% of funds before certified inspection. Common in aviation and infrastructure, it's too often ignored in luxury builds. Escrow protected milestones. Make money, move only when metal moves. Legal analysts calculated that this single clause could have saved about $1,200,000 in this case, now lost between disputed invoices and legal fees. More importantly, it safeguards control. Escrow terms, delivery bonds, and independent inspections are not signs of distrust, but of discipline. They prevent optimism from replacing oversight. Contracts can be rewritten, but the true shift was broader. An industry finally learning that accountability pays for itself. Market reset in motion. The verdict's impact surged through the industry like a sudden current. Regulators, insurers, and trade groups swiftly rewrote their frameworks. Within 6 months, a joint report from European and American maritime boards confirmed a 40% rise in project audits. Builders now face strict transparency rules, and insurers required proof of compliance before coverage began. One lawsuit had triggered a continental reset. Short-term costs climbed, but trust slowly returned. Brokers noticed verified builds, those with certified progress checks, selling faster and with fewer disputes. Prices softened slightly, creating rare openings for buyers patient enough to demand documentation instead of promises. For once, a lower price could mean a safer deal. The industry was realizing that transparency was not a burden, it was leverage. Rebuilding credibility became its only path forward. Yet, through every reform, one haunting image remained: a silent, half-built hull, standing as both a warning and a beginning. The wake of Atomus. The yacht called Atomus never became what it was meant to be. Its steel frame still rests in a dry dock outside Antalya, a monument to ambition, oversight, and consequence. The name, once meaning indestructible, now carries irony carved in metal. Yet its legacy runs deeper than any voyage. It represents every ignored clause, every handshake taken on faith, and every dollar released without proof. From that wreckage came a lesson: diligence outlasts promises. Across marinas and boardrooms, one truth echoed: vigilance costs nothing compared to ignorance. The ordeal that began as one couple's fight reshaped how contracts are written and enforced. Atomus will be remembered not for sailing, but for setting a precedent that changed the industry. The tide has shifted quietly but permanently. From now on, the paperwork matters as much as the hull, and those who forget may find themselves stranded before they ever leave shore. So that's where the $8 million yacht scandal stands. And trust me, the fallout is just getting started. More documents are being unsealed, more insiders are talking, and the next wave could shake the industry even harder. If you've got thoughts on this mess, drop them in the comments. I'm reading every one. Hit like if you want more deep dives like this, and make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss the next update.